Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Nice to see you all. Thanks for joining me. Much appreciated. Yes, indeed. Sixth of these, I think. The sixth time I've gone live for Friday. I didn't do one on Facebook this week. Apologies, but it is an international break. And I figured, actually, rather than doing it at 5:30, like I have been doing, it might be sensible to do it in the slot that would have been Daniel Farke's press conference, because there's obviously no match to tee up, so he isn't doing one. So here I am. Obviously advertised that early this morning. Seemed to have been quite a good idea. What we'll do, we'll get on with 20 minutes of Q&A. I know what we'll do, 20 minutes of Q&A. We will get that started in after 5 minutes. So just a bit of teeing up, just so you're aware. We'll get the 20 minutes of Q&A started after 5 minutes. So obviously it's worth me flagging up that I went to Newport on Tuesday to speak to some of the guys around the under-23s setup, although it was the under-21s playing in the EFL Trophy, but effectively the same team. Norwich won 5-0 against their League Two opponents, albeit Newport were well changed, but it was a wonderful occasion. Lots gone on. Lots to be excited about as well in terms of Norwich City's group that's coming up. And I say coming up, you know, they were under-21s, but they were 3 19-year-olds, 8 18-year-olds in that team, and of course Norwich have got 18 players out on loan as well, not all of them youngsters, but you basically obviously you've got the 18s and 19-year-olds, then the group out on loan, and then the first team group at the moment as well. So a lot of players there and some really good progress. So that's exciting. I hope you get to read that. That's on The Athletic. Go and check it out. If you are not already a subscriber, subscriptions are still £1 for a limited time per month. £1 per month for a limited time. So get involved and just head over to theathletic.co.uk and you should be able to find the relevant place. I haven't done this yet. It's customary introduction, so allow me to do it. I've been practicing again. No, I haven't. Sing along. Hey, if you want me to sing other things on there, then obviously get in touch. So as I said, 20 minutes of your questions. Ask me anything you want. Everything's on the table. I will do as much as I can to answer, put it right, put it not right, fill you in, all those kind of gubbins. Obviously, we are in the middle of a sort of transfer window at the moment, so there should be loads to discuss. Let's get on. Get your questions and comments in, and as I said, I'll do my best to answer them. So what do we got? I hope you're all well, of course. And if there's anything else you want to ask me, go for it. It's why I'm here. I'm all yours for 20 minutes. So let's crack on, shall we? NCFC 1902. Good day to you, sir or madam. Chances of keeping Emmy must have increased. Hey, the chances of keeping Emmy Buendia increase with every passing minute of every passing day. I guess one of the question marks, there we go, a bit better, is whether Norwich want to, I suppose, given it seems to be a lot of people making out, in terms of his body language and how he's dealing with situations and stuff like this. And I do wonder if he's a player who kind of makes it look like he's harder work than he is sometimes. It's not ideal because you obviously we all read a lot into every minutiae of arm waving. Something that he used to do when things were going well as when they haven't been. So I think the case, as it's worth reiterating, obviously the international window is pretty much closed. There are certainly in terms of the big leagues, which are the only places that would really attract Emmy Buendia at this stage. So we don't see that really happening in terms of going abroad, which basically leaves the Premier League, which is where Emmy has kind of said he wants to go. He wants to get back to the Premier League. So he may be hoping that something happens. I have no idea what his dialogue is like between his agent and his people and where he is. But being realistic, if someone wanted him now in one of the bigger clubs, they should have already done it. It depends. Maybe if someone gets desperate, but there are no games now for them to get desperate in. So I don't really, maybe they'll miss out on other targets, but the pool is very small now when you're dealing with just Premier League players, basically. It's just EFL and Premier League players, isn't it? So I don't really see it happening. Don't see anyone coming in for him. Don't really see it happening for Todd. So as it stands now, I'm like, I'm sure this week will just go and that will be that. Whether things change, I don't know. And that includes Norwich incomings, by the way. So, yeah, I would say the chances of keeping Emi Buendia now are really good. I would like to think Emi's the sort of player who can get his head down once he's kind of maybe got over the initial disappointment, because he obviously has wanted that move. And if you the thing that the penny has to drop with him and with Todd Cantwell, the only option is to kick on, bust an absolute gut here, and then see what that see what that delivers in January. I mean, it's one thing being assured of what you can do and where you maybe think you should be, but I thought it was pertinent what Adi Boothroyd said while he was speaking to about ahead of the under-21s pretty shocking draw in against Andorra. These players just have to play football and be really good at it, and then if someone wants to come and buy you, they will come and buy you, and it really is that. That's it. That's the only option you've got. So I hope that sort of resonated, and I hope that's what we see at Norwich, because then let's see where you are in January. If you do really well, and both those two players especially are good enough to be hugely influential in the Championship, then either you're going to get there with Norwich, or someone's going to say, right, we'll take them off your hands, and jobs are good. It isn't really a complicated sum. I don't really understand what the issue is, but we've sort of had this funny, and I don't know if they've been advised particularly well, but we've had a really strange few weeks in terms of their lack of input in Norwich's Championship start, and that's a real shame. Sorry, I keep changing my blind because the light keeps going in and out. I don't want it to look too dark, but there we go. So yeah, I hope that answered the question. But there we go. James Rushmore. Hello, James. Hope you're well. I am well. Thank you very much for asking. Any reason why the pink dressing room hasn't returned this season? Yeah, I suppose. Well, they did it, and they obviously felt that the perception of it and the stick they were getting, and the way some clubs were like rocking up, going, "Ha, you can't fool us with your pink dressing room," probably caused more aggro than was necessary. So I guess they decided just to do something less radical to try and, I suppose, not give any extra motivation to other teams who might have rocked up and gone, "Oh, look at this, we'll show you," right? Which again, probably with the Sheffield United game, probably twigged with them. But actually, Norwich's record at Carrow was very good, especially in the second half of the season. That season, they didn't have it in the Premier League. I don't think I can't remember. They did up the away dressing room ahead of the Premier League game, and I'm not sure why that was. Whether they were opting for something that was just a little bit more comfortable to lull people into what was going to happen in the ground when it was going to be a bit more intimidating. I don't know. I mean, against Manchester City, you sit there thinking, "Oh, it worked," don't you? And then against Villa, you think, "Well, that didn't work." So, I mean, marginal gains and all that sort of stuff is obviously the idea, but I think ultimately it probably made minimal impact, and so I can understand why it hasn't sort of kept there, because these things are quite short-lived, and it's difficult probably to gauge exactly the impact that they have. But if Norwich haven't won at home for the opening half of the season, maybe it'll get painted pink. It's still an option, isn't it? So it can always come back. Abstrict. Hello there, Abstrict. Which academy player do you think will break into the first team next, apart from Josh Martin? So yeah, I mean, Josh Martin is still in the setup. Bali Mumba is the age of Josh. In fact, he's younger than Josh Martin. So although he was a signing, a bit like Melvin City, Sam McCallum, of course, young players bought as first team players, but old enough to be in the academy setup. In fact, they could probably play in the FA Youth Cup, maybe, possibly Bali could, if they wanted. So I think that there's that sort of group, and I don't really envisage anyone breaking in certainly before January or anything like that. But of course, what the EFL Trophy game will have done, and both games so far, and hopefully the rest of that run will no doubt make an impact on Stuart Webber in terms of how those players are adjusting to those situations and those players they're coming up against, and how they take those opportunities. So Tyrese Omotoye has something about him quite clearly. You're talking about an 18-year-old there, so he's properly young. He's basically an under 18 who stepped up to the 23s this season. His third goal was just a wonderful effort. And that was a hat trick, So at that level against that team, that's a great thing for him. And in fact, the second goal I like just as much because of his movement and getting to what was a very decent ball in from Rob Nizet. So or Nizet, I haven't decided yet. So real promise there, but he's obviously got a bit of a way to go. Andrew Omobamidele, I think I've been talking about him for months now, because even when I was watching the under 18s and 23s last season, he was someone where you just thought, he's good at this level. He already looks extremely comfortable. So, and as you will have seen, and as I've been saying all week, it does look, with the departure of Timm Klose, that one of the contemplations for Norwich is to promote Andrew up into the first team group as things go on. He's already been training with them. He was on the bench at Luton at the start of the season, so he's not a million miles off anyway. So we can see how that maybe progresses. He doesn't quite look like he's there yet, but it's also interesting. Akin Famewo getting good reviews as well at Charlton, and Lee Bowyer speaking highly of him too. So there's a couple of options there sort of over the next year or two, which is really promising. And I have to say, Norwich got some decent looking talents coming through in the position as well. Jonathan Tompkinson also looked very good against Newport, and Jaden Warner is a player I like as well. So it's one or two options coming through, which is great to watch. So I think Andrew, probably given the options and the fact he's being earmarked, looks like one that could potentially step on as well. But that 23s group at the moment, there's a lot of potential there, huge potential. As I said, when you consider that the group above them pretty much is out on loan, says a lot for the sort of youth pathways that Norwich are building at the moment, and it's certainly giving them some options for players they can progress themselves rather than having to buy them. Which we still seem to be talking about, even though I'm pretty adamant Norwich won't be bringing anyone else in before this window closes, which is a week today. In fact, 5 p.m. a week today. We are done until January. Can't wait. Can't wait. Jerry, hello, Jerry. I am well, thank you very much. I heard Teemu had an injection. Teemu Pukki, of course, had an injection in his foot for the Derby game. Surely this is for emergency cases such as no other fit strikers or near the end of the season. So we've got about another 15 minutes or so. So keep your questions coming in, and then I'll be wrapping this up. But thank you all for joining me. Much appreciated. Tell your friends, get involved. Do this every week, normally later. Teemu Pukki. So it was not an injection into a muscle, is the first thing to say. It wasn't like, or a broken toe, which is what he had last season, which of course caused the strife. From what I could tell, it was an antibiotic injection into an infection in a toe. So the water's slightly muddy by the fact that Finland didn't play him in their friendly against Poland, but I guess with 2 other games, they might not have played him anyway. So I was quite surprised at the sort of furore that built up, because ultimately I didn't really see it as an injection that would have meant a risk in the same way you're talking about. Basically, I don't think it was a big deal. It certainly wasn't why he slipped and took his penalty. It wouldn't have been a numbing or a pain-killing injection. You're talking about a sort of antibiotic treatment injection. This is what I believe and what I've read into it. So I don't really see the issue. I have to be brutally honest. It's almost like it didn't really happen. Would you rest an infected toe? Yes, you could do, but I don't think it was quite the same as if he'd had an injection into a broken toe or a thigh strain or something like that, or a groin strain. So I don't think it's on that level. So therefore, I don't think it's the same relevance. So of course, Norwich do have other strikers, and whether you think Jordan Hugill should have started because Norwich were crossing the ball a lot more, they are different arguments. But that's sort of how I put it into context in my head. So and that's how I see it. So it shouldn't really have affected anything, but it is a good question, Jerry, and certainly one worth asking. James Rushmore, I know we have a lot of youngsters out on loan, but following the great under-23s result in midweek, would any of them benefit from a loan move? No, ask as many questions as you want, James. I actually asked David Wright that myself, and it's in my piece on The Athletic. He's got a great tight-knit group. They're working with 11 to 12 players regularly, so they can really get deep into their individual progress, what they need to improve on and work on, and where their strengths and weaknesses are, which is great. Real great ability for them to sort of develop them. And obviously they're producing eye-catching results at the moment, but that does mean come January, some of those guys are probably going to be ready for a loan. So Andrew Omobamidele, for example, may well be primed to go out on loan in January if he hasn't really got the opportunity at Norwich, and Norwich are secure at the back, or they don't need him there, or maybe Akin comes back in as an option and Andrew goes out on loan. So I think David Wright is prepared to see some of his 23 group taken from him and loaned out if they keep this rate of progress, which would be understandable. And then, of course, it's about picking the right clubs, which comes down to a degree to Neil Adams, who's loans manager. So definitely that I definitely see that as a path forward. Norwich have just got to balance that out really, and make sure they're getting the right games at the right level, and kind of judging when they've had enough games at a certain level to then go and challenge themselves somewhere else and see how they get on with that. So that's what I would see, and that's probably more likely than them breaking into the first team setup, you'd have to say. Although the players away on loan, I do envisage, I think it'd be strange if they were recalled. I think Norwich do have a tendency to only really recall them if it's not working out, to then get them somewhere else. I think they're inclined to say, you're out on loan, you're there for the season, go prove yourself. If it's going well, we're not going to take you away. We'll have a look at you in the next summer. So I think if players come back, it's more than likely because they are it's not working for whichever reason. Could be the club, could be the player, but they then need to go out and try and find a move that suits them better. So that's how I would probably read that. George Harrison. Hello, George. I was wondering what you see happening to the troublesome trio. Troublesome? Tom, Moritz and Josip, if we don't miraculously offload them this week. Well, I mean, I can't see them going anywhere now. I think it's been quiet all window. I thought the international opportunities were much more likely than internal domestic ones. The Swiss window is still open, which you wonder, Josip maybe back home might be a goer. But Germany is not really an option now for Moritz or Tom. Yeah, it's a tricky one, that. And I don't see them being reintegrated. You never say never because you never entirely know, but I just don't really see that backtracking happen unless there is a major COVID injury fitness issue, and Norwich are so short that it would just be just stupid not to get them back involved. So we will see. But I mean, troublesome trio probably isn't fair either, which I'm sure you know, George. But I don't think any of them have been really a real trouble. I think it's a freshening up that Norwich have wanted. And once you kind of made that decision, then that's it really, isn't it? The club made that decision and told them to go and get themselves sorted. So off they go. And if they can't, then they sort of loiter and they'll just have to keep themselves fit until January. But it's not ideal, is it? We'll see how that resolves. It might be some interesting conversations on that come the rest of the month once the window is closed and they're still here. It has to be said. Simon Copperwheat. Hello, Simon. A lot of fans were worried about now being a centre-back short with Timm Klose's exit. What are your thoughts? So yeah, initially the idea of Timm Klose going out made me think, well, you'll bring someone else in, won't you? So, and clearly history of injury record is an issue. We know that they've got Ben Gibson, Grant Hanley, Christoph Zimmermann. The question mark is how fit are these guys in terms of can they play and be available for 4 months straight? Certainly the last 18 months says that's questionable, and not particularly through any fault of Ben Gibson's because he just hasn't been featured. So there's one issue there. And it's certainly risk. What I would say is you also saw Javi Quintilla playing on the left side of a three. And you also saw Oliver Skipp playing on the right side of a three in the last 2 matches. So there were always options. Now, whether you're then talking about round pegs and square holes is a different point. And it will depend on the dynamics of the games, and the proof will always come down to the results. But I would imagine that Norwich will feel there's enough versatility in the squad to get around it if they have issues. But, there is a degree of risk, isn't there? And a degree of it's, I don't really know what to say, really. I mean, obviously, Andrew Bamadelli may come in. I think Norwich have thought about getting a recruit, a loan recruit in, but it would be as a 4th choice, which is what Timm was. So they're not probably going to play a lot. And then it's like, well, do you do that, or do you just bring through Andrew Bamadelli, get him training regularly, and see if his debut comes along, and see how he takes to that if he's needed. So that seems to make sense. So then you are saying you've got 4 centre backs. So it's just one of them is a bit raw, which so I don't really have an issue with that. But we are in an extraordinary season in terms of the load that's going to be put through these players. Is it a risk? Or it does seem a bit of a risk, yeah. But like anything, it's going to be an educated gamble, I suppose, and a judgment call. And ultimately, us and you and me, we will either slate them or back them for the hindsight of that call. But they're the ones who paid the money, have the judgment and expertise to make it. So and ultimately, we all have an opinion, but we have to wait and see, don't we? And whether by luck or judgment, we'll have a good opinion of how it has fared when we get to January. And that's probably the best way of judging it at the moment. Bob Collison. Hello, Bob. Anything in the Saliba rumours seems too good to be true to me. I'm not really going to add much more on this other than what I tweeted at the time, which is there's nothing in it. And I don't think he'll be coming to Norwich. So that's that, really. I can't account for what other people have said. But as far as I'm concerned, it's not happening. Wasn't really going to happen. That's that. So I hope that helps, Bob. Dan Emery, 1 left back, 1 fit senior right back, 3 centre backs. Yeah, this is kind of what I've just answered. Yeah, I do think it's an unnecessary, not an unnecessary. I do think it's a risk. Obviously, Timm Klose, that situation clearly needed to be resolved by him going out to Basel, which is what he wanted to do. I think we've known he's wanted to go there for a while. Saves Norwich the wages. So. And Norwich will feel that they still have the centre-back options available, and they will hope that actually they've learned from the fitness issues and it won't be as bad this year. So there's only so much, I suppose, you can prepare for. I don't think it would have worked keeping Timm. So, yeah, I can see the risk. And there is a lot of load that's going to go through these players. They just have to make sure they're ready, and they're going to have to try and stay fit. And hopefully the strength and conditioning guys have figured out the better way of doing that this time around. And that's the decision. And ultimately, if they end up with 3 centre-backs out for like 2 months and losing a lot of games, then they'll have to deal with the consequences of that, won't they? But they will obviously have made this judgment call thinking that isn't going to happen. So there we go. Ed Ivans, do you think a replacement centre-back will come from our youth squad? Well, as I said, yeah, I think it's Andrew Omobamidele who's being sort of looked at whether he can be fast-tracked or, promoted. He's already trained with the group. And I think it'll be interesting how he adapts to that. Because as I said, there's so much potential, but he is slightly raw as well. Obviously, he's not had much senior experience coming up against senior forwards. He got some of that in the 2 EFL Trophy games, but again, you're talking about a League One change side and a League Two change side. So this is different to Championship. So you're suddenly finding yourself coming up against Brentford, which who knows might happen. So yeah, we'd have to see. But I think it's great for him, and I wouldn't ever doubt the potential he has because he's a quality player. For still so young as well. So it's really exciting to see how he progresses because, as I said, I watched him play for a year at least, and yeah, like a lot of what I've seen in him. Last few minutes, any remaining questions, get them in. Thank you so much for forwarding them all in. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. If you're watching after the live event, that's no problem at all. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you've got to watch it all through. And don't forget, I do this every week, every Friday, usually in the afternoon, because of course this is normally Daniel Farke presser time, but no game this weekend. So there we go. Last few questions then, unless any more of you get some in. Patrick Brighty, do you think there's been a conscious change in stylistic approach by Farke, notably with the amount of crosses we're putting into the box and the Hugill signing? Yeah, so I think there's a desire to be more adaptable and have more variety, and I think that's clear, probably to a degree from the Premier League experience of trying to do what they were doing really well and then just not being good enough to do it with the sort of athletic strength elements that we're clearly missing from having such a great group of technical players. So they've clearly tried to, that they will try, and you can see that they've tried to recruit some pace. They have got a bit more height and just a bit more physicality, I suppose, that they've tried to create. I don't think they want to step away too much. And I think we've actually seen in real spells, Norwich have some fantastic progressive passing. And you can see what they're trying to do. And it is slightly quicker and more dynamics. I mean, they lost their way last year completely. So I do think they are trying to evolve it, definitely. and it's new players, so they're also trying to adjust to what Daniel Farke would want. So I think you can understand why it's all a bit of a mishmash to a degree at the moment, or more inconsistent. It's in patches. But we need to see that improvement, obviously, and the quicker, the better, because the less work they need to do to catch up to the teams who have made better starts. So I don't think it's going to be a rapid departure, but I think there is a degree to have more variety. But I don't think the balance is right yet, because as we've seen, putting a lot of crosses in when you've still got Teemu Pukki in the box is no better than it would have been 2 years ago. So then do you bring Jordan in? Do you play him more with Teemu? How do you adjust to that? Do you tell Xavi, Quintilla to get to the byline more rather than crossing from sort of the edge of the penalty box? There's a lot of sort of work, I think, that needs to be done in all of that. So we will see. But thanks for your question, Patrick. Much appreciated. Last few. Carl D, do you think we'll bring in another centre-back? Oh, I think I've answered that a few times now. Also, do you think it'll be another loan for Charlie Gilmour this season? Not heard much about in the last few months. Yeah, so Carl, I think Charlie's been injured. He had a nasty back injury, I think, at the end of his loan spell at Telstar, which, of course, was basically just before their season got curtailed and then just shut down. So I think he's still been recovering from that. It's probably been difficult. The fact that Charlie hasn't, I think they were still hoping to get him out on loan, but the fact that he hasn't been involved in any other games, I don't know how close he is to being back, and that's probably not helped him get another loan move. It's all quiet at the moment, and I guess it might be tricky for him to now go out. I don't know when the window officially closes for Dutch second division teams, for example, and something like that. So whether he'd get a domestic loan, I don't know, and I haven't asked for an update. So it's a good question. I'll see if I can maybe find out in time for next week. But as I said, it's a difficult one because he's probably been forgotten a little bit, but he's still at an age, I think, where he could perform for the 23s at some point. So I think there's great opportunities for him to show up there. NCFC 1902, do you echo my thoughts entirely? Oh no, I do echo your thoughts entirely. Oh, well, I'm glad we are in agreement. Canary Sam, if Pukki is fit, would you start him at Rotherham, or do you think it's time to change it up? I'll go for Adam Ida from the start. I mean, the thing with Adam Ida is we don't know if he's going to be available because of him having to return home. Worth a little update here. He's had to return home from the Ireland setup, got left out of the squad last night, was going to be on the bench. That's because a non-football staff member of the FAI tested positive, and Ida was deemed in close contact. So therefore has had to come back to Norwich. He's being tested today. He'll have to self-isolate. Norwich are hoping that a negative test result would mean that he could get reintegrated back into the Norwich group and still be available for the Rotherham game. But there's a sort of question mark over whether he should still self-isolate for 14 days, which of course would rule him out of the game. So we don't know where we are with that yet. Personally, I would still start with Teemu. I don't think he's playing badly. The penalty was massively unfortunate. So for me, he's still the best fit for how Norwich want to play and how they want to go about things from the start. But there does have to be probably an appreciation that Jordan has got to come on sooner than 6 minutes from the end. There's no need for it to be that late. What I would add as well, I mean, if you go straight for Jordan Hugill up top, crossing the ball, you're immediately playing into a game that Rotherham know. So why would you not do how you would surely be better off trying to beat them from the start? So to me, no, Teemu Pukki still starts at Rotherham on Friday, presumably Saturday week, providing he's all fit, of course. Last few, Oliver Middleton, love the content, thanks. Doing my best, I'll keep it coming. What's it like being a sports journalist through a transfer window? Hate every moment or able to make some enjoyment from it? Great question. When I was sort of newer in this job, so sort of like, say, 8 years ago, I used to love the transfer window because it was also exciting. Now, I suppose I'm in a position where I'm a bit more responsible for what I share. It's horrible because having to chase around when 5 people tell you different things, and I dread to think how many times I've been lied to over the course of this transfer window, or not lied, but just trying to work out what the real story is. It's mental, and it's a lot of wasted time, if I'm brutally honest. So what I can assure you is I will never share you anything that I don't know is as close to as 100% accurate as possible. That's all you're going to get from me. There's no pressure on doing anything and just telling you what everyone else is saying or what's being out there everywhere. Don't care. I just need to tell you what's really happening, which probably factors into my William Saliba tweet. So I have a love-hate relationship with the transfer windows these days, and I will be glad when this one is closed, especially. TNC, hello boys, hope you're well. Making a cup of tea. Does the milk go in before the water or after? Hot water, obviously. I'll tell you how. If you're going to make builder's tea with a tea bag, then you need to make sure that you are not putting the milk in with the tea bag and then the water. That's ridiculous. The milk stops the tea bag. Brewing, basically, with the water. So you get a rubbish cup of tea, surely. So you need to, it's always the water in the tea bag, and then you can add the milk once you're taking the bag out. What then I would do, though, a cup of tea with a teapot. You got your tea bags in your teapot, brew that, put your milk in the tea, in your cup, milk in the cup, and then pour your tea into the milk. So there we go. It depends if you're using a teapot, basically. That's how I see it, anyway. And I hope that's answered you. Although TNC are saying it go before. It depends. It depends. Anyway, finally, Carl D. Todd to Leeds thoughts. I think Leeds have made signings that mean that Todd is unlikely to go there. There's a bit of me that says there's obviously a lot of speculation over Todd, but would they go for Todd rather than Emmy? I don't know. I don't see either Todd or Emmy being at Leeds by the closure of this window. I have been proven wrong before, but I think certainly the agent was getting busy with his speculation in recent weeks. I think it's been muddied by the fact that Todd hasn't been selected for the last two Norwich squads, and obviously England under 21s. I can appreciate it's probably really difficult circumstances at the moment, and it's not for me to offer him any advice or anything. What I just hope that we see from Todd and Emmy from here, assuming that they are still here once the window closes next Friday, 5 p.m, just get your head down, bust your gut, get in the team, and just make things happen. And if you make things happen on the pitch, it will look after itself come January. You all love football, playing football at championship level with ambitions to go higher or get back to where you were, fine, but just go prove what you got and everything will look after itself. So there we go. On that note, I am done. I've gone over time, but I always do. Thank you so much for watching, getting involved. Really appreciate it. Please leave any positive feedback or encouragement you wish to, and critical analysis as well. I'm happy with that. Thank you so much for all your questions, for just taking the time out to watch. I really appreciate it. We'll do it again next Friday here on my YouTube channel ahead of the Rotherham game. That's the plan anyway, Friday afternoon around 4:30, 5 o'clock. Although it might be a different time because it's deadline day, isn't it? I'll have a think about when it is next Friday. Keep an eye out on Twitter for that. I also do them live on Facebook, on my Facebook page, Wednesday afternoon around 4:30 as well. In the meantime, take care of yourselves, and I will see you all anon. Sing amongst yourselves while I sign off. I think I'm enjoying that far too much. Take care, everyone. See you later.